Meeting for Thursday, December 7th, 2017. Roll call, please, Joe.
Culhane,
Present.
Kays,
Here.
Stonebarger,
Here.
Dargis Johnson,
Here.
Hanson,
Here.
Olson, Dolly, Stein, and Ford are absent. We have a quorum.
Okay, first item on the agenda is the approval of the October 19th, 2017 minutes. Additions, corrections?
Move to approve.
Moved by Mr. Kays, second. Second by Ms. Dargatz. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion passes. Number 2, applicants Derek and Blake Barton.
Applicant seeks approval to operate, I might want to show you this on the screen first, to operate a home-based service business, a small engine repair, in a PUD planned unit development per 21-7001, contingent upon compliance with Chapter 2170 Home Occupations and Standards and specific rules governing individual conditional uses, including but not limited to Section 210202 2B6A through H. Home occupations may be permitted by conditional use as accessory uses to a principal residential use within any residential district, including a PUD, per 21-7001, and any property used as a residential dwelling within any zoning district, but only in conformance with the standards of Section 21-7002. The definition of home occupation is any occupation which is clearly secondary to the main use of the premises as a dwelling and does not change the character thereof or have any exterior evidence of such secondary use other than a non-illuminated sign not exceeding 400 square inches in area. This occupation shall be carried on or conducted only by members of the family residing in the dwelling. The applicant submitted a written request site plan and floor plan which reflect compliance or non-compliance with the following terms of the ordinance. 210202 2B6A through H is specific rules governing individual conditional uses. This includes review of ingress-egress to the property, off-street parking and loading, screening, buffering, signage, exterior lighting, required yards and open space, and general compatibility with the area. Chapter 2170, Home Occupations and Standards, Barton proposes to utilize 23% of their single-family dwelling for this small engine repair business. He has signed his assurance to comply with Chapter 2170, and no specific signage is proposed at this time. Chapter 2163 is off-street parking and loading requirements and engineering design standards. Sufficient area exists here for 3 legal off-street parking spaces. To be counted, a legal off-street parking space must meet minimum size and location standards and allow the exit of a vehicle without moving another vehicle. A minimum of 2 off-street parking spaces are required just for the single-family dwelling use, and this board may require more as a condition of secondary use approval, such as home occupation. Chapter 2165, outside storage and display requirements for specific uses. Section 21-7002 supersedes this chapter for the secondary use. Number 2 says no outdoor storage of equipment or materials used in the home occupation shall be permitted. Number 6 says no public display of goods shall be allowed on the premises except inside the principal dwelling. Chapter 2173, landscape and lighting standards. Minimum tree requirement is the minimum number of trees to be located on the development site or lot shall be 1 tree per 50 feet of frontage. 1 deciduous tree exists on this 72-foot boulevard. This board must determine if the request shows satisfactory provision and arrangement concerning Chapter 2170 Home Occupations and Standards, Section 210202 2B6A through H, specific rules governing individual conditional uses, and Chapters 2163, 2165, and 2173 as just reviewed. If generally endorsed, this board may consider conditions of approval, such as fulfillment of any or all lacking boulevard infrastructure requirements, additional parking spaces, and/or any other condition deemed appropriate for this secondary use.
Have there been any comments from the neighbors? Pro
No.
or for or against? Nothing?
Nothing.
Okay. Well, with that, I'll open the public hearing. If there's anybody here to speak for or against, please come up, state your name at the mic. And
The Bartons are here.
My name is Blake Barton.
All right, with this in-home repair shop, you're going to use the right side of that garage?
Yeah, we're
on
going to use the tandem part of the garage, which
Yeah.
is the back half of the garage extended into the backyard. And there is a separation of a garage door between our parking and then the tandem garage.
Okay, that's not like a fireproof or anything like that. It's just a
It's just an
sheetrock wall.
insulated back part of the garage.
Okay. So my major concern is that there's not storage of a lot of flammable liquids. Now, a normal garage, you could have like 5 gallons of gas and some oil and stuff like that.
Sure.
As long as you're not planning on storing, 30-gallon drum or anything like that.
No.
Okay. Any questions?
When people drop off their things to be repaired, is that only going to be done during your established business hours, or if I got a weed whipper, I just drop it, leave a note and leave it in the driveway? Is that going to happen, or how are you going to handle the drop-offs and pickups?
Sure. So we are going to be offering to pick up and deliver ourselves. There's going to try and limit the transportation of additional vehicles within the neighborhood. But if somebody does need to drop it off, there will be one of us at the residence. We will arrange a time within our business hours that we have set in the letter so that somebody will be home. So there's not going to be people's property standing outside of our home or visible from the street or anything like
Okay,
that.
I want to remind you that there is no outside storage of any
Exactly.
equipment or anything like that.
Right.
So.
Yeah, that's why one of us will be home to bring the property into the designed or the designated workspace.
Okay.
So it's mostly small equipment, weed whippers, lawnmowers, riding lawnmowers,
Small engines, anything.
boat
with one
engines.
cylinder. One cylinder pretty much is going to be the max. I think there's some that may be 2, but pretty much just 1 cylinder. Generators, ice augers, lawnmowers, weed whackers.
And you stated that primarily it's Saturday and Sunday from 8 to 6 or something?
Yep, just because we both work full-time jobs, so this is more just going to be something that we're going to see on the side how it goes. If it's something that really takes off, we would move locations and go to a commercial location where we'd be able to do more of a Monday through Friday business operation.
Okay. And then during the week, I think you said you'd cut it off at 7 p.m.?
Right, correct.
Okay. Would there be any, I'm not sure if the neighbor would like to hear you testing out your lawnmower at 8 o'clock on Sunday morning, but would there be any leeway on that till 9 or so? Or?
Yeah, absolutely. If that's a requirement of the board, then we would be willing to move from 8 to 9.
Saturday is probably not a big deal, but it's just personal. I don't know if that'll be in the motion or not. Any other questions? With that, I'll close the public hearing and ask for a motion
Thank
Yes.
you.
for discussion.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Mr. Kays makes a motion. Is there a
Second.
second by Mr. Culhane? Any further discussion?
Does anybody want to talk about hours of operation, or is everybody fine with as it's laid out? Or do you want to make something contingent upon that hours as presented are fine, but if we receive complaints that we would reserve the right to bring it back and maybe reset hours?
I think that would be reasonable, yeah.
I agree with that.
So you willing to amend your motion?
I will amend my motion to allow for operational hours as described in the application, reserving the right of the Board of Adjustment that if there are more than 3 complaints regarding noise in a 1-year period, that we can have them brought back.
Mr. Culhane, do you
Second.
approve that second? Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Good luck.
Thank you so much.
Item number 3.
Applicant seeks approval to operate a home-based service business, a hair salon, in the R4 Manufactured Homes Residential District per 21-2203-1, contingent upon compliance with Chapter 2170 Home Occupations and Standards, and specific rules governing individual conditional uses, including but not limited to 21-0202 2B6A through H. Home occupations is a listed conditional use for the R4 Manufactured Homes Residential District per 21-2203-1, home occupations in accordance with Chapter 2170. By definition, a home occupation is any occupation which is clearly secondary to the main use of the premises as a dwelling and does not change the character thereof or have any exterior evidence of such secondary use other than a non-illuminated sign not exceeding 400 square inches in area. This occupation shall be carried on or conducted only by members of the family residing in the dwelling. Applicants submitted a written request and floor plan which reflect compliance or non-compliance with the following terms of the ordinance. 21-0202 2B6A through H are specific rules governing individual conditional uses. This includes review of ingress-egress, off-street parking and loading, screening, buffering, signage, exterior lighting, required yards and open space, and general compatibility with the area. Chapter 2170, Home Occupations and Standards. Pieper proposes to utilize 22% of her single-family dwelling for her hair salon business. She has signed her assurance to comply with Chapter 2170, and no specific signage is proposed at this time. Chapter 2163 is off-street parking and loading requirements and engineering design standards. Sufficient area exists here for 3 legal off-street parking spaces. To be counted as a legal off-street parking space, it must meet minimum size and location standards and allow the exit of a vehicle without moving another vehicle. A minimum of 2 off-street parking spaces are required just for the single-family dwelling, and this board may require more as a condition of secondary use, such as home occupations. Chapter 2165, outside storage and display requirements. 217002 supersedes 2165 for secondary uses. Number 2 states that no outdoor storage or equipment or materials used in the home occupation shall be permitted. And number 6, no public display of goods shall be allowed on the premises except inside the principal building. Chapter 2173, landscape and lighting standards. Minimum tree requirements are the minimum number of trees to be located on the development site shall be 1 tree per 50 feet of frontage, and there are no trees on Lot 6 at this time. This board must determine if the request shows satisfactory provision and arrangement concerning Chapter 2170 Home Occupations and Standards, 210202 2B6A through H, specific rules governing individual conditional uses, and the chapters I went through previously. If generally endorsed, this board may consider conditions of approval such as fulfillment of any and all lacking boulevard infrastructure requirements, additional parking spaces, and/or any other condition deemed appropriate for this secondary use.
Again, were there any comments from the neighbors?
No.
The Peepers aren't here. They're out of town for this issue. They currently have a hair salon about a block and a half away from my house, which I never knew existed for the last 10 years. Like I said in their letter, they're just moving and going to build a new house. This is going to be a temporary location for them, maybe a year and a half. And then they'll be building another house, and they'll probably be back before you again. So,
Okay, so they're moving in a trailer house here to live while they're building their other house, and they want to.
that's correct. And once the other house is done, they'll sell this off. And
Okay.
What's the width of the lot?
111 feet.
So that would require 2 trees?
Yes.
They probably aren't going to own this lot. They're probably leasing or renting it. So to tie them to a permanent fixture, I mean, that's your right, but it's kind of awkward.
This is in Mallard Cove, or?
Yeah. So it'd be a little bit awkward to require somebody to put a permanent fixture on a rented property.
Okay, with that, I'll open the public hearing if anybody is here to speak for or against.
but actually, this diagram that your aerial view shows 2 trees in front of this lot.
Scrawny
those
li-
trees right there?
Scrawny little trees. Maybe one there and maybe one there.
Yeah.
If nobody's here to speak in the public, we'll close the public portion of it and ask for a motion for discussion purposes.
I'll make a motion to approve with the caveat that the minimum number of trees do not need to apply in this application solely due to the fact that the property is leased property. And we've been told that they aren't going to be living there in a couple of years.
Okay, I have a motion by Mr. Kays. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Culhane. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 4.
Applicant seeks conditional use approval to allow for a 5,760 square foot commercial building on a C3 Highway Commercial District parcel to be used as storage units and/or contractor shops and storage yards per 21-2803-11 and/or 21-2803-12 of the zoning ordinance, contingent upon compliance with specific rules governing individual conditional uses, including but not limited to 21-0202 2B6A through H. Staff finds that all public notice requirements have been met, by the way. Contractor shops and storage yards is a listed conditional use for the C3 Highway Commercial District per 21-2803-12, and storage units is a listed conditional use for the C3 Highway Commercial District per 21-2803-11. By definition, contractor shops and storage yards is a use of land or buildings for storage and preparation of materials used by that same individual in conducting business, including but not limited to construction, repair work, fabrication and assembly, and incidental retail sales. Of particular note, each unit shall have separate water and sewer utilities. Also, by definition, storage units is a building or buildings for the storage of commercial or private goods and materials in individual units within a common structure without water or sewer utilities. Applicant submitted has submitted written requests, site plan, and floor plan, which reflect compliance or non-compliance with the following terms of the ordinance. 21-0202 2B6A through H is specific rules governing individual conditional uses, and this includes review of ingress, egress, off-street parking and loading, screening, buffering, signage, exterior lighting, required yards and open space, and general compatibility. Screening, buffering, signage, exterior lighting, refuse containment, etc. were not addressed on the site plan. Chapter 2163, off-street parking and loading requirements and engineering design standards. The submitted site plan does not show off-street parking spaces and aisles layout, but sufficient area exists for the minimum necessary. Chapter 2165, outside storage and display requirements for specific uses. Outside storage may be permitted if acceptable screening is provided and approved by the building official. Merchandise which is offered for sale, rental, or lease may be displayed beyond the confines of a building. The submitted site plan does not show plans for outside storage or screening. Chapter 2173 is landscape and lighting standards. The minimum number of trees to be located on the development lot site shall be 1 tree per 50 feet of frontage. 6 trees are shown or proposed to be planted on the parcel per the site plan. The required 15-foot of grass boulevard, sidewalk, trail, curb, gutter are not shown on the site plan, but note that the applicant is not seeking variances from these requirements. Title 24, Subdivision of Land. The proposed parcel is a legally described subdivision of a platted block. East Acres addition was platted into blocks but not lots. The proposed parcel complies with C3 zone area and width requirements, but lacks the basic infrastructure for new development, such as paved street, curb, and gutter. This board must consider if satisfactory provision and arrangement has been made concerning 21-0202 2B6A through H and the chapters I described above. If application is endorsed, conditions of approval such as screening of outside storage may be specified and/or any other conditions this board deems necessary.
With that, I'll open the public hearing. If there's anybody here to speak for or against this.
I just have a few basic comments that I want to put into this.
Okay.
This permit for this has already been issued as just a commercial spec building. We already have a waiver of right to protest signed by the commercial that says you'll meet the curb, gutter, street requirements as they come along and develop in time. And this whole area, one of the biggest mistakes we ever made is not rezoning this entire property into I-1, because we have had every single lot there come before us and ask for these same specific guidelines already. But that is as it may. It is what it is. Staff supports the request. That's all I want to let you know.
Kenny, can you explain to us how the road is going to get built there?
How the road's going to get built there? Well, once we get about 50% of the people there that say they want to have the road, then we'll go out and do it. We've already did it once. I'll let Shane speak in.
Okay, so when there aren't fully completed infrastructure roads, even utilities in some instances. Now, there aren't any, I don't think sanitary sewers proposed to go down 13th Avenue because of soil contamination issue that occurred a few years back. Anyway, what we've been doing is we've been requiring individual lots like this then to sign us a waiver of right to protest those improvements when it's deemed necessary. And so when we get over 50% of the lots built out on 13th Avenue, we'll probably bring forward a public project and include an assessment project to all those properties, and they'll pay their pro rata share at that time. Now, 17th Avenue also is a street that's partially improved. I mean, it is a hard surface road, but it will be scheduled for a improvement at some time in the future based on the traffic that we expect to be generated from the softball complex.
Is the improvements expected then to go on to the individual on the corner lot, or is that the city going to take that?
To be determined. Might be a split on that one. But for sure, 13th Avenue will be pro rata shared out to this property when the warrants are met to go forward with the project.
Shane, did you say there was no sewer there?
What we do is we have a provision in there when there's sewer unavailable, they are allowed to do a watertight holding tank, and they don't get a drain field or anything like that. They actually have to pump it and dispose of the material.
Now, for this particular lot, there is sewer that goes down 17th, and they have been able to extend it over to 17th and collect off that sewer line.
Okay, I just know that part of those lots in that area don't have it.
Because Jill mentioned they were going to have water in each unit, so I was wondering.
Yep.
But there's nobody here to speak.
Mr. Hate's here if you have questions for him.
Mr. Heat, will you please come up? Please state your name for the...
Mike Haight.
I got two questions for you.
Sure.
Outside storage is one of them. Are you planning on outside storage? And if so, is there going to be screening and buffering? There's nothing on the site plan that indicates that. So.
I guess from time to time there may be like a open trailer, a skid steer trailer, or possibly an enclosed trailer outside. We try to keep everything inside. We have a shop that's 2 doors down right now, and we try to keep most of our stuff inside and out of the element and keep it looking nice back there.
The reason why I ask is we approved one of these on Highway 20.
Okay.
We didn't address outside storage.
Sure.
And there's got to be 8 mobile homes or travel trailers parked outside.
Sure.
Which is not what we intend when we approve a contractor shop.
Just for clarification, storage yard is one of the conditional uses we're asking for.
I know it's
it can be
use. That's why I want
with fencing, though. I mean, if you want to say yes, it can be done with proper fencing if required.
Kenny, does the that same buffering or requirement, fencing requirement, would that apply if this was zoned I-1?
It would still be the same way. An I-1, you're allowed it. It's only required if it's adjacent to commercial or residential, or it becomes, in the opinion of the building official, it needs to be covered up.
What's the structure on the east side of 17th? Is that right? Is that east there, that one there. What is that? Oh, that's
That's
what
Tank
Williams.
Yeah, that's Magellan's gas fields.
Magellan's, yeah.
Yeah, that's probably I-2.
I guess where I'm going with this is that if this property was zoned I-1, you're saying we wouldn't be having this conversation right now? It'd be a permitted use?
It'd be absolutely correct.
And you would deal with issues regarding the necessary
Storage outside the
screenage
tree. Yep, and we've dealt with a few of them out there already. There's some of them start to get a little junky, and we got to go tell them, hey, you're allowed this, but it's got to look nice and neat, or you got to start fencing it. So,
Okay, thank you.
Second question I have for you is, do you propose any type of signage for your area?
No.
Because in the past, we've had out in this area, individuals wanted to sign, and we had to get a variance because he planted some trees, so you wanted to put the sign in the right-of-way. We don't want to put signs in any right-of-ways, so,
No signs for us. No.
all right.
but I wouldn't limit this to not being able to do it. They should just be able to put a
No.
complaint. Well,
I don't
I'm
have
just
a-
looking for the future. You may not need it today, but if you sell the building again and the next guy wants it, I'd hate to say
I don't
no
have a
signage
problem
allowed
with a sign
without
on your property, just
meeting
not
compliance.
encroaching in the right-of-way.
Right. Okay.
So in the future, if you're going to plan for that, that would be good.
Okay.
Any other questions for Mr.?
So the trees will go in only when the street goes in, then?
No, the trees will go in within the year's time of their compliance, of their permit finishing, so.
No other questions? I'll close the public hearing and ask for a motion for discussion.
Motion to approve.
Mr. Hanson,
Second.
motions. Mrs. Johnson, seconds. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Any old business?
I believe we're removing the old business for today. Or,
Yeah, there's pending some further investigation in the issue before I bring that back to you, so.
Okay,
That has been withdrawn.
okay. Motion to adjourn?
I was, new business, can we?
Go ahead.
Based upon what Ken just said regarding this area, looks like there's a half a dozen other potential development sites out there. I would, if the board was so inclined to choose, instruct staff to begin the process of looking at rezoning that property to I-1, both sides of the street, and bringing that back to the planning commission to, that was a one-time deal as opposed to 6 times, so we have to talk about this.
Thank you, I strongly support that.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Real quick, just make sure, are we talking only those properties on 13th Avenue? Are we talking 12th? Are we talking 14th?
I'll let staff make that determination to come back
Okay,
and defend.
because I don't want to just do it on one street if our intention is to
If
do it
you-
on 3
if-
streets.
I understand that the staff has been working on a comprehensive land use plan, so if you can find a
Okay.
reason to justify more industrial zoning, I'd support that.
Very good.
So staff will come back with an industrial zoning area for our proposal. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Any other new business? No old business? Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Mr. Culhane, a second.
Second.
Mr. Hanson,
Don't know what to do with
all in favor, say aye.
that.
Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you. With that, I'd like to open the meeting of the Watertown City Planning Commission for December 7th, 2017. Roll call, please.
Colleen,
Here.
Case,
Here.
Stonebarger,
Here.
Hanson.
Here.
And, oh shoot, I didn't write this down. Olson, Dolly, and who am I missing?
Stein.
Stein are absent.
Okay, like a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved. Second. Whichever it is I'm supposed to do.
Motion by Mr. Case and second by Mr. Culhane. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is approved. Number 2, approval of the minutes of November 9th, 2017 meeting. Need a motion? Mr. Hanson has a motion to approve.
Second.
Second by Mr. Kays. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Number 3, approval of the minutes of November 16th, 2017 meeting.
So move.
Motion by Mr. Kays, second by
Second.
Mr. Hanson. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 4, Resolution 2017-38.
So this is a request for the rezone of the east portion of Block 1 Syndicate Edition, which I have pulled up on the map overhead. The petitioners are Roy and Carrie Brownlee and Marilyn Lobbins of Northview Properties LLC. On November 4th, the petitioners submitted their application to rezone their properties from their current zoning designation being R1 Single Family Residential District to R3 Multifamily Residential District. With each property currently having a fourplex on their lot, they are not in conformance with the current Single Family Residential Zoning designation, which is why this was brought forth to bring their properties into conformance with the current use. With the properties fronting Highway 81, the R3 zoning designation would be a nice buffer zone and would also mirror the zoning designation on the east side of the highway. For adjacent zoning designations, R3 multifamily residential district is to the east. R1, which these properties are currently zoned, are to the west and north, and then there's R2A single-family attached residential districts to the south. So for the property of 315 9th Avenue Northeast, I have all the facts for them being an R3 lot, and that property has 2 accessory structures which are located within 10 feet of the main building, which then are necessary to comply with the same yard requirements as the main building. This structure would be considered legal nonconforming for not meeting the front and side yard setbacks, making a variance required when applying for a building permit unless the accessory structures are brought into compliance. The structure's use would be in conformance with the zoning district if it is rezoned to R3 multifamily residential district. And then 913 4th Street Northeast, same thing. With all the facts with that lot, this property has 3 accessory structures. The northwest structure is approximately 528 square feet and does not meet the 9-foot rear yard setback. The structure directly to the east is approximately 84 square feet and does not meet the 4-foot rear yard setback. This structure would be considered legal nonconforming for not meeting the front yard setback, making a variance required when applying for a building permit. This structure's use would be in conformance with the zoning district if it is rezoned to R3 multifamily residential district. Staff recommends that the Plan Commission approve the application to rezone the described property to bring the parcels into conformance with current zoning regulations.
Do you have any comments from the adjacent property owners?
No, just clarification on what exactly is taking place, but none that are opposed to it.
Okay.
Brandy, 2 questions. The first question is, if the property was zoned R2, would a fourplex still be allowed?
As a conditional use.
Would a fourplex be allowed in the R2A zone? If the property was zoned R2A, would that relieve either one of the front or side yard requirements from being non-compliant?
We can't create any more R2A zones. It's a
If it was zoned that, it would still be, because
But if it was zoned R2, we'd still have both issues with front and side yards?
the lots are big enough where they'd require the 9-foot side yard regardless whether it was R2, R2A, or R.
Okay. That was my question.
So, yeah, it basically came about, 913 4th Street wants to look at refinancing when this was brought to their attention that they are not in conformance with their zoning. So if there were to be a fire or natural disaster, that they could not rebuild as they currently exist.
But they wouldn't be able to rebuild even with this change as it currently exists?
Their use would stay the same, but their building would have to.
Yeah, regardless of the zoning. Except you're right. Okay, I see. They can't have a fourplex in an R1. Is that what the deal is? Okay.
Yeah.
If you rezone it and it would be destroyed and they build it back to the exact same footprint that it is, it would be allowed to be rebuilt.
That's what the non-conforming regulations allow in the city of Watertown?
Correct.
That makes...
There's a percentile in there of how much it gets destroyed and everything else, but
So with that, I'll open the public hearing. Is there anybody here to speak for or against the rezoning?
Nope. Property owners aren't here.
Okay. With that, I'll close the public hearing. Can we get a motion for discussion purposes?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Case to rezone it as R3. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Culhane. Any further discussion?
I guess I have a question for clarification. That property has been re-sided and roofed recently. I mean, did they not get a building permit at that point that triggered this, or is it just more the...
the resetting and re-roofing wouldn't require a permit. But, and even when we say they can't have a permit, the permit only, the only permit they'd be denied to have because of a nonconformity is anything that changes the cubic content or expands the exterior. They could go inside and remodel the entire place with a permit that would be granted even if it's non-conforming.
All right.
So here we're faced with rezoning R3 next to R1, which is not normally the process, but because there's already, we're just coming up to the reality. It's a R3.
I grew up a half a block from there. The fourplex has been there since I was a kid. I don't think there's been an issue. The house on the corner used to be the church rectory. Was converted into a fourplex. I think in an effort to keep these people's investments in place and protect the tax base for the city of Watertown and proximity to the R3 and the R2A, it's just another transition zone off of Highway 81.
And the people that are doing it now aren't the ones that did it wrong to start with. That all of a sudden they're finding out in the back door that, hey, guess what?
Well, and really, R3 is more appropriate along Highway 81 than R1.
Any further discussion?
Is there an access point onto Highway 81 from either one of those structures?
Looks like 913 has parking pad.
Can you turn the zoning off for a minute?
Yeah, that was my next step.
Is there any way that we could get rid of that access point?
The DOT just recently redid that portion of the highway, and they allowed it to come back, so I would leave it alone.
If it's all right with DOT, then I guess it's okay.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Is there any new business?
Yes, Chairman. I'd like to propose for the staff investigation the addition of a resort category as a conditional use in R1 designations. And I'm not entirely sure how this process works, but I don't know if we can form a subcommittee or something like that to discuss with composing of members of both the committee or the commission and staff.
Yep, and if you guys want to have discussion about your initial thoughts of it, otherwise if you're if you want to initiate staff looking into it and proposing an ordinance amendment, we can do that route too. But to bring it forward as an ordinance amendment, we need it initiated by a plan commission member, which Liam would suffice, or a city council.
You suffice, Liam.
My recommendation would be that staff initially investigate what other communities and counties do regarding the development of resorts at lakes in the area, come up with some sample language, and then have a subcommittee meeting consisting of at least 2 planning commissioners, 2 city council persons, and any other person that the mayor would like to appoint to that subcommittee. We can go through a work session and then come back to the planning commission and then talk about it as a group.
Okay, so are we strictly looking at the options of regarding zoning, or are there other ulterior options such as a conditional use? I mean, where are we limited in our scope of?
I think my recommendation would be to investigate what other counties and cities do, come back with sample language that you think makes good sense, have a discussion, smaller discussion with city council, city planning commission representation. That's not in a quorum sense, with a work session. And then from there, that subcommittee could bring back something to the full planning commission for their discussion.
Okay, that said, I don't know, is there a time-sensitive element to this discussion or not?
I understand with the holidays, I think we would be looking at maybe, if we could look at sometime in January, I mean, with the group talking about it. And I guess I'm not looking for, I don't think you're looking for a full-blown ordinance having to be drafted. It's just more or less some concepts and some ideas.
I think as some additional guidance, I think what maybe I did a little bit of outside research. What maybe makes the most sense is just simply adding a resort category with a narrow definition to R1, such that it only applies to the lake, as opposed to rezoning the entire.
And then we would need some sort of performance standards.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Because R1L would probably be a long-term.
That's the at the end of the rainbow. I think we've talked about doing an R1L district for many years. I think that's a winter project, but I think maybe a summer project as well. But this would be just a one-off, and so I would look at if we could at least address the idea, conceptualize it,
Mm-hmm.
put something down on paper to react to, and then bring the public in for comment.
Exactly.
Perfect. Yep. That works.
Second that motion, I guess.
There's been a motion by Mr. Culhane and seconded by Mr. Kays. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All
Opposed?
right.
Motion passes.
And then we have one more new business. And Brittany, if you want to come up. She wanted to look into adding employees to home occupations for 217002.5. So she'll give you a background on that.
Hi, my name is Brittany Loma. I graduated from Lake Area in 2012 with an associate's degree in child development. I opened my own InHome Daycare 3 months after I graduated, and I've been working there for 5 years since. I am currently looking to expand my care a little bit by hiring an employee. I understand that there's reservations about it being a residential area and having an employee. My concern is the children. Having an extra set of eyes is never a bad thing. Having, especially if there's an emergency, it allows for more one-on-one attention. There's a serious need for daycare in Watertown. I don't know if any of you have young children or grandkids, but we have a serious need for daycare in Watertown. We have people going outside of Watertown to smaller towns trying to find daycare because we don't have enough in Watertown. So I'm looking to expand my business a little bit and hire an employee.
May I ask you a couple questions?
Yeah, absolutely.
Are you a licensed daycare provider in the state of South Dakota?
Yes, I am.
So you're licensed up to 12?
Yes, I am.
And if you were to hire another employee, you could have a 12 more or 6 more? What's the number? How does that work?
The next step up is they say 13 to 20, but I do not want to have that many.
My wife does daycare, so that's why I'm asking
you
the
get
questions. That would be a lot on your house, I get that.
Yeah, no, there's no way I would have that many.
And you would be looking at only one, if we were to come back and look at some sort of a recommendation, and we were only limiting employees to daycare, in-home daycares, what would be the maximum number of children in relationship to that extra person that you think?
I am not looking forward to taking more than 2 or 3 more kids.
So 15 at the top end?
And as of right now, I have 12, but very rarely do I have all 12 at a time. Very rarely. Especially now with school being in session, so I'd have some in school part of the day, and then they come back. But yes, an employee, I'd have 1 extra car coming in the morning, staying all day.
In your situation, do you have enough parking spaces?
Yes, I have a 3-stall garage, and that employee could park in the garage even, so.
I appreciate there is a need for daycare in the city. Our ordinance does not allow for that. Hire an extra outside of the home provider. And I think that's something that maybe we could study, but if we do it for daycare, I'm not sure how we would word it, so you can't do it for a small engine repair or whatever, and then you end up being pretty much a commercial operation.
Just
So-
from my experience alone, I don't know of too many in-home businesses that can afford or will want to hire an employee.
I understand, but I think our staff should look into it, maybe come up with something that we could study.
I would look at, again, instructing to see what other towns do, and you maybe see it, I think, home occupations where there may be employees in residential areas. Commonly, you may see it as salons, haircutters, or daycare. I've seen it in places like that before. Again, we'd want to be careful if somebody's doing woodworking in their garage or small engine repair. Now I've got 3 grease monkeys going in there, and not that there's anything wrong with that, but it changes the character of the neighborhood too.
I agree.
So, and actually, Brittany will be coming in front of the Board of Adjustments because she moved for a conditional use for her in-home daycare. So by that, I mean, by the time she comes back, we won't be able to bring anything forward for an ordinance amendment per se, unless that's something that you want to propose in your conditional use. I don't know if that's doable either, Jill or Ken.
Well, she could apply to have an employee subject, and we could always do that subject to an ordinance being adopted, but if the ordinance is never adopted, that condition doesn't apply.
Okay. Sounds good. So then, that's something that we can look at on the 21st.
Right.
And then we'll get to work on doing some research on that.
Thank you.
So any other new business?
No.
Old
That I
business?
know of. No.
So I would like to ask a question or two. Has the staff moved any farther on Pheasant Lane, and what can or cannot be accomplished there?
Okay, I'll give you a brief update. We have been doing some engineering review things out there. We're identifying all the property pins that we can. We're cross-sectioning an area out there so we can kind of understand what the drainage is doing out there and exactly find out where the right-of-way lies versus where everybody thinks it lies. You know, there's always that gray area where the right-of-way line is or isn't. So we're doing that. We're going to reach out to all the property owners along there with a meeting regarding discussions about zoning and potential improvements, and maybe breaking that up into segments, but we still have to determine on a staff level what we think we would want for a minimum roadway. You know, is it going to be gravel with ditches? Most likely that's what we're going to recommend, but whatever we recommend has to have an advancement point. In other words, where we trigger the next step, where you're going to pave it, where you're going to provide other services. But once we open the door, my biggest concern is that items like mail and garbage collection and services of that nature need to be accommodated by whatever we do. And so all of these things are being discussed on a broad level, and we do need to define that project. And I'm not committed anything to anyone out there as to what will be approved or might be approved or anything at this point. It's all status quo. We won't do anything until we have a solid directive that includes input from those people that own that public land out there.
I would like, I appreciate all the iterations that go into this, but I would like the city to try to move forward. It's been 40 years.
Yep.
People have owned this property. They've been paying taxes on this property, but they can't get a building permit on the property. And I think the city owes them a little consideration too.
I agree. I agonize over, if I owned one of those pieces of properties, I would be agonizing over the same things that these folks are. I can't believe that that this has been foregone this long. And now I will applaud that the city staff in 2007 tried to initiate a assessment project to push forward an improvement, but that fell short, and obviously we're still at the same place we were in 1980. So we do need to rekindle that and make sure that the residents out there are given as much attention as we can, and find a way to do something, I hope. So
Okay. I only brought it up because I didn't want to get forgotten until next June. And
Nope, we're still working on it. In fact, I've had the engineering staff out there collecting all that data.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
Any other old business?
Just one little quick announcement for those on the Planning Commission. I know most of the staff have met, but in my business, you all know Luke Muller. We've hired another planner. His name's Tom Nealon, and he's sitting out here in the audience. So just wanted you to get familiar.
Okay. We have any executive session? Do we have a motion to adjourn then?
Motion to adjourn.
Mr. Culhane, is there a second? Second. Mr. Hanson, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? We are adjourned.